The Galactic Council chamber was massive and cold, built to intimidate rather than welcome. Ambassador Daniel Carter sat in the designated human section, a small, uncomfortable chair positioned lower than the elevated seats of the 7 elder species. He had been coming here for 3 years now, always hoping that this time would be different. It never was. Counselor Vexnar spoke without looking at Daniel, his scaled reptilian face turned toward the other council members, as if the human wasn't worth acknowledging directly. The Crobian's voice echoed through the chamber with practiced authority. Your species has submitted another petition for full membership status. We have reviewed it and find it lacking in several key areas. You simply do not meet the biological requirements for true spacefaring capability. Daniel felt his jaw tighten, but kept his expression neutral. Lieutenant Sophie Morrison sat beside him, her hands folded neatly on the table. She had warned him this morning that today would be no different from the hundreds of sessions before. The council had perfected the art of saying no in 1,000 different ways. Perhaps in another 1,000 cycles your people might evolve the necessary adaptations. Vexnar continued, waving one clawed hand dismissively. Until then, we suggest patience and continued learning from your betters. The other counselors made sounds of agreement. The Zynthians, insect-like creatures with multifaceted eyes, clicked their mandibles in what passed for laughter among their kind. The ethereals, beings of pure energy contained in crystalline shells, pulsed with colors that the translation devices rendered as amusement. The Felinar representatives, feline humanoids with predatory grace, watched with barely concealed contempt. Daniel had dealt with prejudice before in his 20 years as a diplomat, but nothing quite like this. These aliens believed in their superiority with religious fervor. They had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years and saw no reason why that should ever change. Humanity was an upstart, a newcomer, a child playing at the adult table. With respect, Counselor, Daniel began carefully, choosing each word with precision. Humanity has successfully colonized 17 star systems in the past decade alone. Our technology has advanced at rates that exceed most council species. Our contributions to medical research have saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. Surely these accomplishments demonstrate our capability. Counselor Thane of the Felinar Collective leaned forward, her golden eyes narrowing. Stolen technology, she said flatly. You reverse-engineered our derelict vessels and claim innovation. You are scavengers, Ambassador, nothing more. Clever scavengers, perhaps, but scavengers nonetheless. The chamber erupted in approving sounds. Hisses, clicks, chirps, and pulses of agreement filled the air. Daniel felt something inside him crack. He had been patient. He had been diplomatic. He had smiled through 3 years of insults and condescension. He had followed every protocol, filed every form, attended every session. And for what? He stood abruptly, the movement so sudden that it silenced the chamber. Sophie looked up at him with wide eyes but said nothing. She knew that look on his face. Something had changed. I see, Daniel said quietly, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Then humanity respectfully withdraws its petition for council membership. The silence deepened. Vexnar's scales rippled in confusion. You withdraw, he repeated slowly as if the concept didn't make sense. You understand what this means, Ambassador. Without council membership, you have no protections under galactic law. No guaranteed trade rights, no territorial protections, no access to council resources. Daniel felt a cold smile spread across his face. We are quite aware of what it means, Counselor. Humanity has no interest in continuing to beg for scraps from a table we were never truly invited to join. Lieutenant Morrison signaled the fleet. We are going home. Sophie's fingers moved to her communicator without hesitation. This is Morrison to Captain Brooks. Initiate protocol exodus immediately. All human personnel are to evacuate council space within 24 hours. Repeat, all personnel evacuate immediately. The council members exchanged glances of disbelief. This wasn't how things were supposed to work. Lesser species didn't just leave. They pleaded. They bargained. They accepted whatever terms were offered because they had no other choice. You cannot simply leave, Thane protested, rising from her seat. There are procedures that must be followed, treaties that must be formally dissolved, trade agreements that require proper termination protocols. Daniel turned to face her fully. To what end, Counselor? We were never granted full membership, which means we are not bound by your precious procedures. We applied for membership in good faith. You rejected us. That's the end of the story. Humanity is done playing this game, but your investments, Vexnar sputtered. Your facilities across council space. Your trade contracts. Your research partnerships. Will all be withdrawn within the week, Daniel finished. We built them, we maintained them, and we will take them with us. Or destroy what we cannot take. Either way, they will no longer be available to the council. He gathered his datapad and documents, placing them carefully in his case. Sophie did the same, her movements efficient and professional. The two humans prepared to leave the chamber that had been their prison for 3 years. A younger counselor, a Xinthian named Clix, spoke up nervously. But what about the medical stations? The relief efforts? The infrastructure projects? You cannot simply abandon those responsibilities. Daniel paused at the chamber entrance and looked back. Watch us, he said simply. The walk through the council diplomatic station was the longest of Daniel's career. Aliens of hundreds of species stopped to stare as the two humans passed. Word was already spreading through the massive station like wildfire. Humanity was leaving. The impossible was happening. When they reached Earth's embassy, the staff was already in motion. Protocol Exodus had been planned months ago, though Daniel had never truly believed they would use it. It was a contingency, a last resort. But as he watched his people efficiently packing documents, wiping computers, and preparing to abandon the embassy they had maintained for 3 years, he felt a strange sense of relief. Captain Frank Brooks appeared on the main view screen, his weathered face serious. Ambassador, all civilian ships are being recalled. Military vessels are taking up defensive positions around human colonies. We will be ready to move within 18 hours. Excellent, Captain, Daniel replied. Make sure nothing of value is left behind. If we built it, we take it. If we cannot take it, we destroy it. I want the Council to understand exactly what they are losing. Understood, sir, Frank said with a grim smile. Should I expect resistance? Daniel considered the question. No, Captain, I don't think so. They still don't believe we are serious. They think this is a negotiating tactic. By the time they realize we mean it, we will be gone. Sophie approached with a datapad. Sir, I'm getting emergency requests from Council medical facilities. Apparently, several ongoing epidemic treatments were being managed exclusively by human doctors. They want to know if we can leave those teams in place. Daniel didn't hesitate. Negative. All personnel withdraw. The Council wanted to do things without us. Let them. But people will die, Sophie said quietly. Daniel met her eyes. Yes, they will. And that blood is on the Council's hands, not ours. We offered our help as partners. They treated us as servants. We are done being responsible for problems they created. The evacuation continued through the day and into the night. Human ships began departing from Council space in steady streams. Trade vessels, research ships, medical frigates, all heading back toward human-controlled space. The galaxy watched in shock as the impossible unfolded before their eyes. In his embassy office, Daniel Carter looked out at the stars one last time before the lights were shut off forever. 3 years of his life had been spent in this place, fighting for recognition that would never come through diplomacy, but perhaps he thought there was another way. Perhaps respect couldn't be requested. Perhaps it had to be taken. He turned and walked out of the empty embassy without looking back. The evacuation moved like a perfectly choreographed dance across hundreds of worlds. Captain Frank Brooks stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiant, watching the tactical display as green markers representing human ships began their journey home. Each marker was a station abandoned, a facility shut down, a presence erased from Council space. Commander Lisa Hayes checked her console and reported without looking up. All civilian personnel have been evacuated from Andromeda Station. Medical teams are pulling out of Xinthian Prime. Science crews are leaving the research facility at Kepler Station. Everything is proceeding according to schedule, Captain. Frank nodded slowly, feeling the weight of what they were doing. Good. Make absolutely certain that nothing valuable gets left behind. Every piece of human technology needs to be accounted for. If we built it, we take it. If we cannot take it, we slag it. Navigation Officer Kyle Stevens turned in his chair. Sir, we are receiving distress calls from multiple Council worlds. The medical teams we had stationed on Xinthian Prime were apparently the only ones capable of handling 3 separate epidemic outbreaks. They are requesting permission for our personnel to remain until replacements can be trained. Frank's expression remained hard. Denied. They made their position clear about our cap. Abilities. I am sure their superior species can figure it out without us scavengers helping them. But sir, Kyle began hesitantly. I said denied, officer, Frank repeated. We offered to train their people 6 months ago. They refused because the work was beneath them. That is not our problem anymore. On the council diplomatic station, chaos was spreading like fire through dry grass. Ambassador Daniel Carter watched from the embassy's exterior cameras as aliens rushed through the corridors in confusion. Human technicians were shutting down systems they had maintained for years. Human doctors were closing medical clinics that had served thousands of council citizens. Human engineers were pulling out of infrastructure projects that kept entire sections of the station running. Councillor Vexnar appeared at the embassy entrance with a squad of security drones. His scales had paled to a sickly gray color. Ambassador Carter, you must reconsider. Surely we can reach some accommodation. Perhaps we were too hasty in our judgment. Daniel continued, directing his staff without looking at the councillor. Too hasty. You spent 3 years telling us we were inferior. 3 years of insults and condescension. 3 years of treating us like children begging for approval. And now that we are leaving, suddenly you want to negotiate. But the consequences, Vexnar started, are yours to deal with. Daniel finished. You should have thought about consequences before dismissing us so completely. Did any of you actually bother to check how much of your infrastructure depends on human expertise? Vexnar said nothing. The silence was answer enough. Sophie Morrison appeared at Daniel's side with a final checklist. Sir, all classified materials have been destroyed. All computer systems have been wiped. The embassy will be empty within the hour. She paused and lowered her voice. Sir, are we sure about this? Some of these facilities we are abandoning serve thousands of innocent people who had nothing to do with the council's decisions. Daniel felt a pang of guilt, but pushed it aside. I know, Sophie, but if we stay, if we continue to provide services while being treated as inferiors, nothing will ever change. Sometimes you have to let people face the consequences of their choices, even if innocent people suffer in the short term. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. On the agricultural planet Harvest Prime, Administrator Greg Patterson supervised the shutdown of the massive terraforming network that kept the atmosphere breathable. The local Felinar governor arrived in a state of panic, his usual proud bearing completely gone. You cannot leave. The atmospheric processors will fail within 3 weeks. Our people will suffocate. Greg felt no satisfaction in the governor's fear. You should have considered that before your people called us dirt farmers. We offered to train your technicians how to maintain these systems. You refused because manual labor was beneath your warrior culture. But thousands will die, the governor pleaded. Then I suggest you learn very quickly how the systems work, Governor. We uploaded all the technical manuals to your planetary database before we started the shutdown. Everything you need to know is there. Whether you choose to use it is up to you. Earthships depart in 4 hours. The governor's ears flattened against his skull in distress. 4 hours is not enough time to train anyone. You know this. You are condemning my people to death out of spite. Greg turned to face the alien fully. Not spite, Governor. Consequence. For 3 years, your species has benefited from human expertise while simultaneously mocking us for providing it. You wanted us gone. Now we are leaving. What happens next is entirely in your hands. On the mining world of Ferris 7, human engineers shut down the orbital refineries that processed rare minerals essential to Council technology. The station manager, a Crobian named Dax, watched in horror as systems went dark one by one. We have contracts, he protested weakly. Legal obligations, Chief Engineer Paul Harris shook his head. We have contracts with the Council for services rendered as associate members working toward full membership. Since we withdrew our petition and the Council never granted us membership, those contracts are void. Check with your lawyers if you want, but we are leaving regardless. But the economic impact, Dax tried, is substantial, Paul agreed. These refineries process 60% of the Council's rare earth minerals. Without them, your technology production will grind to a halt within months. You will need to either build new facilities, which will take years, or find another species willing to do the work. Good luck with that. Within 24 hours, the scope of the crisis became clear to the Council leadership. Emergency reports flooded in from across their territory. Medical facilities without staff. Infrastructure projects abandoned mid-construction. trade routes collapsing as human shipping companies withdrew their vessels, agricultural systems failing on worlds that depended on human-designed terraforming. The emergency council session was unlike anything in their 10,000-year history. The usual formal protocols were abandoned as representatives shouted over each other in panic. The carefully maintained illusion of superiority crumbled in the face of hard reality. 17 medical facilities have gone completely dark, a Xinthian delegate screeched, mandibles clicking rapidly. My people are dying from diseases we do not know how to treat. The humans were the only ones who bothered to study our unique biology. The outer rim trade routes are collapsing, added a Crobian merchant. Human shipping handled 70% of our cargo traffic. 70%. How did we let them become so integral to our economy? Counselor Thane slammed her clawed hand on the table hard enough to crack the surface. How did we not see this coming? How did these primitives become so essential to our civilization without us noticing? High Counselor Zephix, the ethereal who rarely spoke during normal sessions, pulsed with colors that translated to deep concern. We were blinded by our own prejudice. While we dismissed humanity as inferior, they quietly studied us, learned our needs, identified our weaknesses, and filled gaps we did not realize existed in our society. They manipulated us. Vexnar hissed, his scales flushing dark with anger. This was planned from the beginning. They made themselves indispensable deliberately so they could hold us hostage. Did they? Zephix challenged, pulsing sharply. Or did they simply work harder, adapt faster, and prove more willing to do jobs we considered beneath us? Review the records, Counselor. Every time humans offered to train our people in their techniques, we refused. Every joint project we insisted on maintaining control while they did the actual work. Every contribution they made we dismissed as lucky or stolen. We did this to ourselves. The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. The truth was impossible to deny when laid out so plainly. What do we do now? Thane asked quietly. Her earlier anger deflated. Our pride has cost us dearly. We send a delegation to Earth, Vexnar said. We offer them full membership immediately. Full rights, full protections. Everything we should have given them 3 years ago. Surely they will accept, will they? Zephix questioned. We spent 3 years proving that our word means nothing. Why should they trust promises made in desperation? Because they need us too, Vexnar insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. We provide them with access to our trade networks, our protection, our knowledge. Do they need those things, Zephix asked? Or have we simply assumed they do because that is how it has always worked? What if humanity genuinely does not need the Council? What then? No one had an answer to that question. The possibility that they had overplayed their hand, that they had rejected a species that could thrive without them, was too frightening to fully contemplate. In the human territories, ships continued to arrive in steady streams. Colonies that had operated semi-independently now found themselves hosting refugees from Council space. The infrastructure that had seemed barely adequate suddenly proved robust enough to handle the influx. Humanity had been preparing for independence whether they realized it or not. Daniel Carter stood on the observation deck of the Defiant as it approached Earth orbit. Behind them, Council space grew smaller. Ahead, home waited. He had spent 3 years trying to earn their respect through diplomacy. Now he would see if refusing to accept their contempt would work better. Sophie joined him at the window. Do you think they will come after us, sir? Daniel shook his head. No. They still do not understand what just happened. They think this is a negotiating tactic. By the time they realize we are serious, it will be too late. Too late for what? Too late to stop us from proving we never needed them in the first place. The emergency session of the Galactic Council stretched into its 3rd day without resolution. What had started as an organized government meeting had devolved into something closer to a panic. Representatives abandoned their usual diplomatic masks and spoke with raw desperation about the cascading failures across their territories. Counselor Thane paced back and forth, her feline grace replaced by agitated movements. We have confirmation that 42 worlds are experiencing critical infrastructure failures. 42. Water treatment, power generation, atmospheric processing, all maintained by human technicians who are now gone. It gets worse. A junior Crobian representative added nervously. Our intelligence C division just finished analyzing human fleet movements. They are not scattering. They are consolidating in the Terran sectors with military precision. This was not a panicked retreat. This was an organized strategic withdrawal. Vexnar's scales rippled with barely contained anger. Then we were played from the beginning. They made themselves essential and waited for the right moment to leverage that dependence. High Counselor Zephix pulsed with what translated to frustration. You still do not understand. They did not play us. We played ourselves. Humans offered genuine partnership at every turn. We were the ones who insisted on hierarchy. We were the ones who refused to train our own people. We created our own dependence by treating their contributions as beneath our notice. The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to admit that the ethereal was right, but the evidence was undeniable. Every report told the same story. Humans had quietly become the backbone of council infrastructure, while the elder species focused on maintaining their image of superiority. A Xinthian medical officer entered the chamber, mandibles clicking anxiously. Honored counselors, I bring urgent news from the medical facilities. The epidemic on Xinthian Prime has spread to 3 neighboring colonies. Without human doctors who specialized in our biology, the death toll is rising exponentially. We estimate 10,000 dead within the week if we cannot find treatment. Thane turned sharply. Do we not have our own doctors who can handle this? The medical officer shifted nervously. We do, but they lack the specific training. The humans spent years studying diseases unique to each council species. They created databases, treatment protocols, specialized equipment. Our own physicians are brilliant with Xinthian biology, but these are cross-species pathogens that the humans understood better than anyone. They tried to teach us. We refused the training because we felt it was unnecessary to learn from primitives. The weight of those words hung heavy in the chamber. How many times had the council rejected human offers to share knowledge? How many opportunities for genuine cooperation had been wasted because of pride? On the trading hub of Nexus Station, the economic impact became impossible to ignore. Merchant Prince Korvax addressed a gathering of trade representatives, his voice strained. Human shipping companies moved 70% of goods through the Outer Rim territories. Without them, trade has effectively stopped. Goods are piling up at ports with no way to transport them. Colonies that depend on imported food are facing starvation. A Felinar merchant stood up angrily. Then we commandeer their ships. They abandoned them at various ports. We use them ourselves. Korvax shook his head. We tried. Human vessels have security protocols we cannot bypass. The ship simply will not respond to non-human commands. And before you suggest forcing human crew to operate them, remember that we have no humans left in council space. They all evacuated. Then we build our own fleet, another merchant suggested. With what resources? Korvax countered. The refineries that processed our rare minerals were operated by humans. Those facilities are now shut down. Even if we had the materials, it would take years to build enough ships to replace what we have lost. The reality was sinking in across the council territories. Humanity had not been peripheral to their civilization. They had been central to it, and now that centrality was gone. On Earth, President Laura Bennett addressed the United Nations Assembly. The mood was somber but determined. My fellow citizens, we face a critical moment in human history. For 3 years, we sought acceptance from the Galactic Council. We were rejected, insulted, and dismissed at every turn. Now we must decide who we are going to be moving forward. Senator Paul Martinez stood. Madam President, are we prepared for the possibility of council retaliation? They may view our withdrawal as an act of aggression. Laura nodded. Admiral Tanner, please brief the Assembly on our defensive posture. Admiral Chris Tanner activated a holographic display showing human-controlled space. Our fleet has taken up defensive positions around all colonies and major installations. We are not seeking conflict, but we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. However, intelligence suggests the Council is too busy dealing with internal crises to consider military action. Director of Intelligence Helen Cruz added her assessment. Our analysis indicates the Council is facing complete economic collapse within 3 months if they cannot restore critical systems. They are not thinking about punishing us. They are thinking about survival. Laura looked around the chamber. Then we wait. We continue building our own infrastructure. We expand our colonies. We strengthen our independence. And when the Council comes to negotiate, because they will come, we do so from a position of strength. What terms do we offer them? asked Senator Claire Brooks. Do we help with their humanitarian crises? Laura considered the question carefully. We help where lives are at stake, but only on our terms. No more free expertise. No more taken-for-granted cooperation. If they want human assistance, it comes with real compensation and genuine respect. On the agricultural colony of New Montana, Governor Janet Hayes faced a situation that tested those principles. A council relief ship had entered human space broadcasting emergency codes. The ship's captain, a Felinar named Corseth, requested permission to land and purchase food supplies. Janet met him in the colony's administration building. The proud warrior looked diminished somehow, his ears flat against his skull in a gesture of submission. Governor Hayes, I come seeking aid for my people. Our agricultural worlds are failing faster than we anticipated. We can pay whatever price you name. Janet studied him carefully. 3 months ago, your people called us dirt farmers when we offered to share our agricultural techniques. Your warriors mocked my scientists for working with soil and plants. Corseth's tail lashed in agitation. I know I was among those who mocked. I was wrong. Arrogant beyond measure. My pride may cost thousands of lives. I cannot let that happen. Janet appreciated the honesty. This is what we will do. We will provide food, enough to prevent starvation. In exchange, you will send students to learn from our dirt farmers. Real students, not nobles collecting credentials. People willing to actually work the soil and learn the techniques. Corseth nodded immediately. Done. I will send my own son if necessary. Pride means nothing to the dead governor. The agreement was small, but it represented something larger. A new way of interacting. Council species coming to humans as equals or even as supplicants rather than humans begging for acceptance. Similar exchanges happened across human space. Council representatives approached human colonies seeking assistance with infrastructure failures, medical emergencies, technical problems. Each time they found humans willing to help, but only with proper compensation and respect. Ambassador Daniel Carter, now recalled to Earth, watched these developments with satisfaction. He met with President Bennett in her private office. They will come with a formal delegation soon, probably within the month. They will offer full membership and equal status. Laura nodded. And what do you recommend we do? Daniel smiled grimly. We make them wait. Not out of spite, but because they need to understand what it feels like to petition and plead. They need to experience the uncertainty we lived with for 3 years. Only then will they truly understand why their treatment of us was unacceptable. Some will call that petty, Laura observed. Daniel shook his head. It is not about revenge. It is about establishing genuine respect. The Council will never truly see us as equals unless we force them to recognize that we do not need their acceptance. We need their respect, and respect cannot be given. It must be earned through demonstrated capability. Laura looked out at the Earth below. How long do we make them wait? As long as it takes for them to realize the galaxy has changed. They are not the only power that matters anymore. There are younger species watching what happens. If we accept their first desperate offer, we teach everyone that the old hierarchy still stands. But if we negotiate from strength, we change the entire system. On the council station, emergency meetings continued without end. Reports came in of more failures, more crises, more desperate situations. The elder species who had ruled for 10,000 years found themselves helpless in the face of problems they had always relied on others to solve. Counselor Vexnar finally admitted what everyone was thinking. We need them more than they need us. That is the reality we must accept. Thane's ears flattened in distress. Then what do we do? Beg. Zephix pulsed with somber colors. Yes, we beg. We offer them everything we should have offered 3 years ago, and we hope they are more merciful than we were. The preparations began for a formal delegation to Earth. The proud council that had rejected humanity's petition would now have to petition humanity for help. The irony was not lost on anyone. In human space, colonies hummed with activity. Industries expanded. Research facilities pushed new boundaries. Military capabilities grew stronger. The withdrawal had forced humanity to become truly self-reliant, and they had risen to meet the challenge magnificently. Daniel Carter stood on an observation deck watching ships come and go from Earth orbit. Sophie Morrison joined him. Do you think we did the right thing, sir? People are dying in council space because we left. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Yes, people are dying. That is a tragedy. But if we had stayed, If we had continued accepting their contempt, nothing would change. Sometimes the only way to force change is to let people face the full consequences of their choices. The Council created this situation. Now they have to find their way out of it. 2 weeks after humanity's withdrawal from Council space, the United Nations convened an emergency session on Earth. Every colony sent representatives. Every major station connected via secure channels. Every human settlement across 17 star systems tuned in to hear what came next. President Laura Bennett stood at the podium, her expression serious but determined. "My fellow citizens," she began, her voice carrying to billions of listeners. "For 3 years we sought acceptance from the Galactic Council. We believed that diplomacy and patience would eventually earn us the respect we deserved. We worked harder than anyone else. We contributed more than was asked. We proved our capabilities time and again. And yet we were dismissed as primitives and scavengers." The assembly hall was silent as everyone listened. Laura continued with controlled passion. "We were not wrong to seek peace. We were not wrong to offer cooperation. But we were wrong to believe that we needed their approval to validate our worth. Earth and her colonies have thrived not because the Council permitted it, but in spite of their obstruction. We built 17 successful colonies without their help. We developed technology that surpasses theirs in many ways. We established ourselves as a legitimate power in this galaxy. We did this ourselves." Admiral Chris Tanner stood from his seat near the front. "Madam President, our intelligence indicates that Council vessels have been spotted near our borders. They maintain non-aggressive postures, but they are clearly monitoring our activities. What are your orders if they attempt to enter our space without permission?" Laura's expression hardened. "They are welcome to watch from outside our territory. Any unauthorized entry into human space will be treated as a hostile act. We are not seeking conflict, but we will defend our sovereignty absolutely. Make that position clear to all fleet commanders." Director of Intelligence Helen Cruz activated a holographic display showing economic and infrastructure data from Council space. "Madam President, our analysis shows that the Council's situation is deteriorating faster than we initially projected. Critical systems are failing on 48 worlds now. Medical emergencies are escalating. Their economy is contracting by approximately 8% per week. Within 3 months, they will face complete societal collapse in several sectors." Senator Paul Martinez leaned forward. "That raises an important question, Madam President. Do we have a moral obligation to help prevent humanitarian disasters even though the Council brought this on themselves?" Laura was quiet for a moment, weighing the question carefully. "We help when it serves our interests and our values, but we do so on our terms. If Council species approach us respectfully and offer fair compensation, we will provide assistance. But we will not rush to their rescue simply because they are panicking. They need to understand that the old dynamic is finished forever." "What about the innocent civilians who are suffering?" asked Senator Claire Brooks. "Many of them had nothing to do with the Council's decisions to reject us." Laura nodded slowly. "You are right, Senator. Innocent people are suffering. That is a tragedy. But consider this. If we immediately solve all their problems, what message does that send? It tells them that humans will always be there to clean up their messes regardless of how they treat us. It reinforces the old pattern where we do the work while they take the credit. Sometimes, painful as it is, people need to face consequences before they truly change." The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued for immediate humanitarian intervention. Others insisted on maintaining pressure until the Council made formal concessions. Eventually, a compromise emerged. Humanity would respond to direct requests for help on a case-by-case basis, but only with proper agreements in place. On the frontier colony of New Montana, Governor Janet Hayes implemented this policy firsthand. A second Council ship had arrived, this time carrying a Xinthian medical delegation. Their lead doctor, a female named Zixara, approached with obvious desperation. "Governor Hayes, we come seeking medical supplies and expertise. The epidemic on our homeworld has spread to 6 colonies now. 20,000 are dead. Without help, the number will reach hundreds of thousands within a month." Janet felt the weight of those numbers but kept her expression neutral. "Why should New Montana provide these supplies, Doctor? Your people have resources and knowledge. Use them." Zixara's mandibles clicked in distress. "We lack the specific knowledge. The disease is a mutation that crosses species barriers in ways we have never encountered. Your human doctors studied it extensively during the joint research program 3 years ago. They developed treatment protocols that we do not fully understand. We need their expertise. Then perhaps you should not have expelled them from your world, Janet replied. I understand there was an incident where your government called our medical staff amateurs and demanded they leave. Zixara's complex eyes dimmed with shame. That decision was made by politicians who valued pride over wisdom. I personally opposed it. Many of us did. But we were overruled by those who believed council superiority was more important than practical cooperation. Janet considered this. If New Montana provides medical assistance, what guarantees do we have that your people will not simply expel our doctors again once the crisis passes? Zixara produced a data tablet. I am authorized to offer a formal treaty. Human medical personnel will be granted permanent immunity from political interference. They will have full authority over treatment protocols, and New Montana will receive 20 years of mineral rights on one of our asteroids plus technology sharing agreements. My government is desperate, Governor. We will agree to almost anything. Janet reviewed the proposed treaty carefully. It was generous, far more than the council would have offered before. Send your students first, 20 of your best medical trainees. They will work under our doctors and learn the treatment protocols. Once they demonstrate competency, we will send a team to your homeworld to help implement those protocols. But our people work under human command with full legal protections or we do not help at all. Agreed, Zixara said immediately. Thank you, Governor. You are saving lives that my own government's arrogance endangered. Similar negotiations happened across human space. Council representatives arrived at human colonies and stations, each carrying offers that would have been unthinkable just weeks before. Technology exchanges, resource rights, legal protections, fair compensation. The desperate situation had forced a complete reversal in the power dynamic. Ambassador Daniel Carter, now working from Earth as a special advisor to President Bennett, compiled reports on these negotiations. He met with Laura in her private office to discuss the patterns emerging. They are learning, Madam President, Daniel said. Slowly and painfully, but they are learning. Every species that has approached us has offered genuine concessions. They are treating our people with real respect because they have no other choice. Laura studied the reports. How long do we maintain this pressure before opening formal negotiations? Daniel leaned back thoughtfully. The key is letting them realize that the old galaxy is gone forever. They need to understand that this is not a temporary situation. We are not going to beg our way back into their good graces. They need us more than we need them. And that fundamental truth must be accepted by everyone before we can build something new. What about the humanitarian concerns? Laura asked. Are we being cruel by withholding immediate aid? Daniel shook his head. We are responding to every legitimate request. We are helping where we can, but we are doing it as equals who are owed proper respect and compensation. That is not cruelty, Madam President. That is establishing healthy boundaries. The Council spent 10,000 years taking advantage of younger species. Someone had to break that cycle. Meanwhile, in Council space, the emergency sessions had become a permanent state of crisis management. The Grand Chamber that had once hosted formal debates about galactic policy now resembled a disaster coordination center. Representatives shouted updates about failing systems, desperate populations, and collapsing infrastructure. High Counselor Zephyx finally called for order by pulsing with colors that translated to authority. Enough. We have spent 2 weeks debating how this happened and who is to blame. The only relevant question now is what we do about it. We send a formal delegation to Earth, Vexnar said, his scales now a permanent dull gray from stress. We offer them full membership with complete equality. We give them everything they asked for and more. And if they refuse, Thane asked quietly, then we collapse. Zephyx stated bluntly. Within 3 months, perhaps 6 at most, our civilization will fragment. Worlds will become isolated. Trade will cease. Billions will suffer. We have built our society on assumptions that humanity has proven false. Now we either adapt or we die. The chamber fell into somber silence. The truth was undeniable. The mighty Galactic Council, rulers of the galaxy for 10 millennia, had been brought to its knees by the withdrawal of a single species they had considered primitive. Begin preparations for the delegation, Zephyx ordered. We will go to Earth and we will negotiate, not from strength but from necessity, and we will accept whatever terms they offer because we have no alternative. On Earth, Daniel Carter received word of the Council's decision to send a delegation. He smiled slightly and reported to President Bennett. "They are coming." "Just as we predicted." "Good," Laura said. "Let them come. But we make them wait when they arrive. A few days at our border will give them time to fully appreciate their new position. Some will call that petty," Daniel observed. "Let them," Laura replied. "This is not about revenge. This is about establishing a new paradigm. The Council needs to understand that the galaxy has changed fundamentally. They are not the center of power anymore. They are one power among many, and not even the most important one." Daniel nodded in agreement. "When we finally meet with them, what are our minimum demands?" Laura pulled up a document she had been working on. "Complete equality in all matters. Permanent High Council seat for Earth. Abolishment of all species-based discrimination in Council law, and guarantees that no member can be dismissed or diminished without cause. We are not just joining their club, Daniel. We are rewriting their rules. They may not agree to all of that." Laura smiled. "Then they can watch their civilization collapse. We have everything we need. They have nothing without us. The terms are non-negotiable. Across human space, colonies prepared for whatever came next. Military readiness remained high. Economic development continued. Research programs expanded. Humanity had discovered something profound in those weeks of independence. They did not need the Council to thrive. They had everything they needed within themselves. The withdrawal had been traumatic, but it had also been liberating. The galaxy was changing, and humanity stood at the center of that change. Not because they had sought power, but because they had refused to accept powerlessness. The Council delegation would arrive soon, and when they did, they would find humans who were no longer interested in begging for acceptance. They would find a people who knew their own worth and would accept nothing less than full recognition of it. The Council delegation arrived at Earth's orbital defense perimeter exactly 6 weeks after humanity's withdrawal. Their ships were diplomatic vessels painted in the traditional colors of peace, not the warships that usually accompanied Council expeditions. Captain Frank Brooks watched them approach on his tactical display with cold satisfaction. "They are requesting permission to enter human space," Commander Lisa Hayes reported. "The delegation is led by High Councilor Zephyx himself, along with Councilors Vexnar and Thane." Frank nodded slowly. "Acknowledge their request and inform them that President Bennett will grant them an audience when her schedule permits. Until then, they are to remain at their current position." "Sir, that could be days," Lisa said carefully. Frank smiled without warmth. "Yes, it could be. They made us wait for 3 years. They can wait a few days." The Council ships held position at the edge of human space for 3 full days. No explanation was given for the delay. No apology was offered. They simply waited, experiencing firsthand the uncertainty and frustration that humanity had endured for so long. Inside the lead ship, Councilor Thane paced restlessly. "This is humiliating. We are the Galactic Council. We should not be kept waiting like common supplicants." High Councilor Zephyx pulsed with patient colors. "We are exactly what you described. Common supplicants. We come seeking aid from a power that does not need us. Humility is appropriate in such circumstances." Vexnar's scales had dulled to a muddy gray. "My intelligence sources report that human colonies are thriving. Their economy is actually growing faster without us than it did within Council space. They truly do not need our approval." "No," Zephyx agreed. "They do not, which means whatever terms they offer will be the only terms available. We have no leverage in this negotiation." On the 3rd day, permission finally came for the delegation to approach Earth. They were escorted by human military vessels, a subtle reminder of whose space they now occupied. The Council representatives were brought not to some grand palace or intimidating government complex, but to a simple conference room in the United Nations building. President Laura Bennett waited for them with a small group of advisors. Ambassador Daniel Carter sat at her right hand, his expression carefully neutral. Admiral Chris Tanner stood at attention behind them. The room was deliberately plain, with none of the theatrical grandeur of the Council chambers. High Councilor Zephyx entered first, his crystalline form pulsing with subdued colors. "President Bennett, we come seeking dialogue and hoping for reconciliation." Laura gestured to the chairs across from her. "We are listening, Counselor." The directness seemed to catch Zephyx off guard. He had prepared elaborate speeches, formal protocols, the usual diplomatic dance. But Laura's simple statement cut through all of that. They were here to talk. So Tok Zephyx settled into a chair designed to accommodate his unique form. The council was wrong. We allowed prejudice and arrogance to blind us to humanity's genuine contributions and capabilities. We treated you as inferiors when you proved yourselves superior in adaptability, innovation, and willingness to cooperate with others. Vexnar leaned forward, his earlier pride completely gone. We come offering full council membership with immediate implementation, equal voting rights, territorial protections, unrestricted trade access, everything we should have granted 3 years ago. And in exchange, Daniel asked quietly. Your return to council space, Thane answered. Your expertise, your trade networks, your medical knowledge, your technical skills. We need what you can provide. Laura sat back and studied the three counselors. What you are saying is that you need us more than we need you. The counselors exchanged uncomfortable glances. Zephyx finally nodded. Yes, President Bennett, that is the truth of our situation. The galaxy has changed. The old assumptions about council dominance were revealed to be illusions. Humanity has proven that determination and capability matter more than age or evolutionary advantages. Admiral Tanner spoke up from his position. Pretty words, Counselor. But words are cheap. You gave us plenty of words before while treating us like children. Why should we trust council promises now? Vexnar met the Admiral's gaze directly. Because we have no choice. Our economy is collapsing. Our infrastructure continues to fail. Our people are suffering. We cannot replace what you provided, not in any reasonable time frame. We need humanity. That need makes our promises credible in ways they were not before. Laura nodded slowly. Then here are our terms. Full membership is offered, but additionally all laws discriminating against younger species are abolished. Council membership becomes based on capability and contribution, not on age or biology, and Earth receives a permanent seat on the High Council. The three counselors reacted with visible shock. Thane's ears flattened against her skull. That would fundamentally alter 10,000 years of council structure. You are asking us to dismantle the entire hierarchy that our civilization is built upon. Yes, Laura said simply. That is exactly what we are asking. The question is whether you are genuinely interested in change, or merely in restoring the old system with us included in it. We will not be junior partners in your broken hierarchy. We will be equal partners in a new system, or we will remain independent and build our own network of alliances with other younger species. Daniel added his voice. You need to understand something, counselors. We are comfortable as we are. Our colonies are growing. Our technology is advancing. Our people are happy. We do not need this agreement, you do, which means we set the terms. The delegation requested time to consult with the full council. Laura granted them 2 hours. The counselors withdrew to their ship to engage in heated debate with their colleagues back in council space. Zephyx made the case as clearly as he could. We either accept their terms and restructure our entire civilization, or we face complete collapse. There is no third option. Humanity has called our bluff and revealed that we have no cards to play. But permanent seats on the High Council have always been reserved for the founding species, protested a voice over the communication link. This breaks 10 millennia of tradition. Tradition is a luxury we can no longer afford, Zephyx replied. Humanity is offering us a chance to adapt and survive. If we refuse out of pride, we condemn our people to suffering we could have prevented. The debate continued for the full 2 hours. In the end, desperation overcame tradition. The council voted to accept humanity's terms. When the delegation returned to the conference room, Vexnar spoke for them all. We accept your terms, President Bennett. All of them. We will restructure the council to eliminate discrimination based on species age. We will grant Earth a permanent High Council seat. We will establish merit-based membership standards. In exchange, we ask that humanity return to council space and help us rebuild what was lost. Laura looked to her advisors. Daniel nodded slightly. Admiral Tanner gave a curt gesture of approval. She turned back to the delegation. Then we have an agreement. Human personnel will begin returning to council space within the month. But understand this clearly. We return as equals. Any species, any individual who treats human citizens as inferior will face immediate consequences. The old hierarchy is dead. Make sure everyone understands that. The treaty negotiations stretched over the next week. Every detail was hammered out with precision. Human lawyers ensured that the language left no room for the council to backslide into old patterns. When the final document was signed, it represented the most significant political shift in galactic history. Counselor Thane approached Daniel privately after the signing ceremony. "You planned this from the beginning," she said quietly. "The withdrawal, the timing, the leverage. You manipulated us into this position." Daniel smiled enigmatically. "We simply refused to accept your definition of our place in the galaxy. You chose to underestimate us. You chose to rely on us without bothering to understand how much you relied on us. You chose to reject us when we sought partnership. Those were your choices, Counselor. We just stopped pretending they did not matter." Thane's tail lashed in frustration. "You taught us a very painful lesson, Ambassador." "Yes, we did," Daniel agreed. "And now the question is whether you truly learned it. Time will tell." 6 months later, human ships returned to Council space. Not as petitioners or subordinates, but as equals. Human settlements reopened on Council worlds with new contracts that guaranteed fair treatment and proper compensation. Human doctors returned to medical facilities with authority over their own programs. Human engineers rebuilt infrastructure with full partnership rights. The galaxy watched as the Council adapted to its new reality. Some species resented humanity's rapid rise to power. Others saw opportunity in the breaking of ancient hierarchies. Younger species that had suffered under the old system looked to humanity as proof that change was possible. Ambassador Daniel Carter stood in Earth's new embassy on the Council Central Station. The building was larger now, positioned prominently among the other High Council embassies. Earth's flag hung at equal height with those of the founding species. He looked out at the busy station and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Captain Frank Brooks visited him there, sharing a drink while watching ships arrive and depart. "Do you think it will last, the new arrangement?" Daniel considered the question carefully. "It has to last. They need us and we benefit from cooperation. But more importantly, we prove something that cannot be unproven. Power does not come from age or tradition or evolutionary advantages. It comes from capability and determination. Every species in Council space saw what happened. They know change is possible now. So we did not just change our position in the hierarchy," Frank said slowly. "We changed the entire concept of hierarchy." "Exactly," Daniel replied. "The galaxy will never be the same. The old assumptions are broken, and humanity gets to help shape what comes next." They raised their glasses in a silent toast. Two humans who had helped guide their species through its most critical test. Behind them, Earth's flag hung beside the Council emblem, equal in every way. The talks had ended abruptly 6 months ago. Humanity had walked away from the table, but they had returned on their own terms, and the galaxy was better for it. The age of earned respect had begun, replacing the age of assumed superiority, and at the heart of that change stood humanity, proving that sometimes the only way to gain a seat at the table was to be willing to walk away from it.